Welcome back to our exploration of meaning making and conflict in product teams. In the previous module, we examined how worldviews shape our perceptions and how different action logics create fundamentally different ways of interpreting the same situation. We explored how these differences in meaning making can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts, even among well intentioned team members. In this module, I'll build on that foundation and dig deeper into the cultural and professional differences that influence meaning making. We'll examine specific cognitive biases that can intensify conflicts and explore practical strategies for creating shared meaning within your teams. I'll also introduce a powerful concept from family systems theory that can help you maintain perspective and calmness when navigating meaning making conflicts. By the end of this module, you'll have practical tools for recognizing meaning-making differences, addressing cognitive biases, and fostering environments where diverse perspectives become a source of strength rather than conflict. Let's dive in. How we make meaning isn't just influenced by our individual experiences. Our cultural and professional backgrounds also shape it. These collective forces create powerful frameworks that guide how we interpret information and interact with others. Professional training and experience create specific lenses through which people view problems and solutions. It's not that different disciplines create these perspectives from scratch. Rather, certain types of meaning making frameworks tend to attract people to specific fields. Then, those fields reinforce and refine those approaches. For example, someone drawn to design might already have a strong orientation toward user experience and visual communication. Their design education then provides specific tools and frameworks that further shape how they make meaning in professional contexts. Similarly, those attracted to engineering may already value logical systems and efficiency, with their training reinforcing analytical problem-solving approaches. As a leader, developing the ability to recognize and work with these different meaning-making frameworks is crucial. This skill goes beyond simple empathy. It requires deliberately trying to understand how someone else constructs meaning based on their professional and cultural background. One particularly effective approach is steel manning, the opposite of creating a straw man argument. Instead of reducing someone's perspective to dismiss it easily, steel manning means assuming the other person has expertise and knowledge that you don't, so you should work hard to truly understand their position. It means genuinely seeing the strongest version of their argument and the value in their perspective, rather than looking for weaknesses to exploit. This skill becomes even more critical when working with multinational teams where cultural backgrounds add another layer to meaning-making differences. Different cultures have varying approaches to knowledge acquisition, conflict resolution, and even signaling disagreement. What might be considered healthy debate in one culture could feel like aggressive confrontation in another. So, how do you develop this understanding of cultural and professional differences? Start with curiosity. Ask questions about how team members approach problems, what they value in solutions, and how they prefer to receive feedback. Create a psychologically safe environment where people feel comfortable sharing their perspectives and reasoning without fear of judgment. I found that demonstrating vulnerability myself opens the door for others to share more openly. When I acknowledge the limitations of my perspective and ask for help understanding others' viewpoints, it signals that different frameworks are valued rather than threatening. Outside of direct team interactions, invest time in expanding your understanding through reading about different cultural and professional approaches, finding mentors from various backgrounds, and even engaging with fiction, films, or other cultural touchpoints that provide insight into different ways of making meaning. These indirect experiences build a foundation that helps you recognize and navigate meaning-making differences when they arise in your team. Now that we understand how meaning-making processes develop, let's explore specific cognitive biases that can intensify conflicts in product teams and how to address them. Confirmation bias is our tendency to notice, seek out, and remember information that confirms what we already believe while filtering out contradictory evidence. This bias can be particularly problematic in product development when team members become attached to their initial ideas or approaches. For example, an engineer might dismiss user feedback that contradicts their technical approach, or a designer might only acknowledge user research that supports their existing design direction. To counter confirmation bias, establish processes that deliberately seek disconfirming evidence, such as having team members play devil's advocate in discussions, or creating structured frameworks for examining potential flaws in proposed solutions. Self-serving bias leads us to attribute our successes to our own abilities and efforts, while blaming failures on external circumstances. Simultaneously, we often do the reverse with others, attributing their failures to personal shortcomings and their successes to luck or circumstance. This bias creates conflict when team members fail to take responsibility for mistakes or don't give proper credit to others' contributions. To mitigate this, foster a culture of shared accountability and success by publicly acknowledging both team achievements and setbacks as collective experiences, and model taking personal responsibility when appropriate. In-group bias is our tendency to favor people we perceive as part of our group. This might mean engineers trusting other engineers more than designers, or your team trusting each other more than colleagues from other departments. I've witnessed this bias creating harmful dynamics when teams say things like, well, if we had that project, we would do it so much faster and better. This attitude undermines cross-functional collaboration and creates unnecessary conflict. Combat in-group bias by creating opportunities for cross-functional relationship building, establishing shared goals that require collaboration, and highlighting successful cross-team partnerships. Negativity bias causes us to give more weight to negative experiences than positive ones. This can lead teams to focus on problems without recognizing progress or opportunities, creating a climate of pessimism and defensiveness. Establish practices that deliberately highlight progress and successes alongside challenges to counteract negativity bias. Regular celebration of wins, no matter how small, help balance the natural tendency to focus on what's going wrong. Zero-sum bias leads us to incorrectly view situations as win-lose scenarios when mutual gain is possible. This often happens between design and engineering or between product teams competing for resources. To overcome zero-sum thinking, frame challenges in terms of shared organizational goals, emphasize collaborative problem solving, and create structures where different teams' success metrics complement rather than compete with each other. By recognizing these biases in yourself and your team, you can implement strategies to minimize their impact and create a more collaborative environment where different meaning-making processes become complementary rather than sources of conflict. To illustrate how meaning-making differences create conflict in product teams, let me share a scenario that highlights these dynamics. Imagine a product team developing a new analytics dashboard for a financial services platform. 3 months into development, tensions are running high. The engineering lead is frustrated because his team has built exactly what was specified in the requirements, but the business stakeholders are disappointed with the result and claim it isn't what they asked for. In a particularly tense meeting, the engineering lead pulls up the original specification document and points to each requirement, demonstrating how they have delivered everything listed. The business lead counters that while the technical requirements might have been met, the dashboard doesn't solve their business problem, which was increasing customer retention by making account value more transparent. The product leader realizes they're witnessing a classic meaning-making conflict. The engineering team is making meaning through the lens of technical specifications. In their worldview, success means building what was documented. The business team is making meaning through business outcomes. In their worldview, success means solving the underlying problem, regardless of whether every specified feature is delivered. Neither side is wrong, but they're operating from entirely different frameworks for interpreting the situation. The conflict isn't really about the dashboard features, it's about different ways of defining success. To resolve this, the product leader facilitates a workshop where both teams articulate their definitions of success. They create a shared vocabulary, documenting what solved means from both perspectives. They also establish a new process where technical requirements are explicitly connected to business outcomes in all future specifications using Hoskers and Hart, as discussed in an earlier chapter of this course. This scenario illustrates how many conflicts in product teams stem from these different meaning making processes. Conflict is inevitable when engineering, design, product, and business stakeholders define success differently. The solution isn't to eliminate these different perspectives. That diversity is valuable, but to create shared understanding and alignment around key concepts and goals. The most effective approach to navigating these conflicts is getting people to talk to each other directly rather than having the product leader serve as a perpetual translator. Running workshops focused on vision, mission, strategy, measures of success, and goal setting helps different groups understand prioritization and contribute to negotiations about what takes priority. Now that we understand how meaning making differences create conflict, let's explore practical strategies for creating shared meaning in your teams. One of the most potent approaches is shared vocabulary building. Create a glossary or dictionary for your team that explicitly defines key terms and concepts. Don't assume everyone understands words like done, ready, high quality, or user friendly the same way. For example, I once worked with a team where ready for review meant completely different things to different team members. To some, it meant the code was finished and tested. To others, it meant a rough implementation was in place and they wanted early feedback. By explicitly defining these terms in a shared document, we eliminated a significant source of frustration and miscommunication. Document your non-functional requirements, or NFRs, as well. These are often implicit assumptions that can cause conflict later. Things like performance expectations, security requirements, or analytics integration that might seem obvious to some team members but not others. Another effective strategy is a facilitated dialogue where team members can safely share their different viewpoints. The book Difficult Conversations, which we'll explore more in our next module, offers excellent frameworks for these discussions. These dialogues help team members understand each other's meaning-making processes rather than just debating surface-level opinions. Decision documentation is also crucial for creating shared meaning. Don't just record what decisions, but also the why behind the decision and why other options were rejected. This context helps team members understand the meaning behind decisions, even if they might have made different choices based on their own frameworks. I've increasingly been using AI tools like Google Meet's Gemini AI for this purpose. It can document meetings and decisions automatically, creating a shared record that everyone can reference. Finally, regular reflection through retrospectives or similar processes helps teams build shared understanding over time by explicitly discussing what's working, what isn't, and why. These sessions can reveal meaning-making differences that might remain hidden during daily work. The phrase over time is important here. You must understand that implementing these practices isn't like a light switch. Putting them into place won't fill the room with light and eliminate all conflicts and misunderstandings. But over time, your team will perform at a higher level, be happier, and deliver more value because there will be less time spent resolving or avoiding conflict. An additional framework I found valuable for understanding team dynamics is family systems theory and the concept of differentiation. I first learned about this from Steve Cuss, author of Managing Leadership Anxiety. Steve also has an excellent podcast with the same title that I'll link in the resources section. Family systems theory suggests that in any group or system, anxiety and emotions travel and spread throughout the group like contagion. You may have heard the saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. This captures the essence of how emotional states can affect entire systems. Differentiation means having a healthy boundary between yourself and the group's emotions. Well differentiated individuals can remain connected to the group while maintaining emotional independence. They don't automatically absorb others' anxiety or get swept up in group emotional dynamics. This concept is particularly relevant to meaning making and conflict. In teams with low differentiation, meaning making conflicts quickly become emotional contagions, with anxiety spreading rapidly and intensifying disagreements. Team members take sides, rational discussion becomes difficult, and the original dispute gets lost in emotional reactions. As a leader, developing your differentiation is crucial. When you can stay calm and objective amid conflicts, neither detaching completely nor becoming emotionally reactive, you create space for productive resolution. You can acknowledge different meaning making frameworks without being threatened by them or needing to immediately decide which one is right. Practical steps for developing differentiation include recognizing when you're becoming emotionally reactive to conflicts, practicing techniques to maintain composure in high tension situations, separating your identity from particular outcomes or approaches, and creating psychological safety for team members to express different viewpoints. Leaders who learn to remain calm amid conflict and dispute are like superheroes in their organizations. When you can navigate and resolve conflicts from a position of calmness, it has a tremendous impact that also increases your standing and influence. Team members notice and respect this ability, and it creates a foundation of trust that makes addressing meaning making differences much more productive. In this module, we've built on our understanding of meaning making to explore how cultural and professional differences influence our interpretations, how cognitive biases can intensify conflicts, and practical strategies for creating shared meaning in our teams. We've seen that cognitive biases like confirmation bias, self serving bias, in group bias, negativity bias, and zero sum bias can significantly impact how we interpret situations and interact with others. By recognizing these biases in ourselves and our teams, we can implement strategies to minimize their adverse effects. We've also explored practical approaches for creating shared meaning, including building shared vocabularies, facilitating dialogue, documenting decisions with context, and engaging in regular reflection. These strategies help bridge the different meaning making frameworks in diverse product teams. Finally, we've introduced the concept of differentiation from family systems theory as a powerful tool for maintaining perspective and calmness when navigating meaning making conflicts. By developing your ability to remain connected but emotionally independent, you can create space for a more productive resolution of differences. The key insight from these two modules on meaning making is that conflicts often stem from different ways of interpreting reality rather than differing opinions about what to do. By understanding these deeper sources of conflict, you can address root causes rather than just symptoms, creating environments where diversity of thought becomes a strength rather than a source of tension. In our next module on having difficult conversations, we'll build on this foundation by exploring specific techniques for addressing conflicts directly when they arise. We'll look at how to prepare for challenging discussions, identify underlying interests beneath stated positions, and develop strategies for managing emotional triggers during conflict situations. Combining your understanding of meaning making with effective conversation skills, you'll be well equipped to transform potential conflicts into opportunities for greater alignment, collaboration, and innovation. I'll see you in the next module.